I'm Ryan O'Doud, and you're listening to Ryan's Audiobooks on the Issues Magazine YouTube channel. Today we continue with section 9:11 of The Incarnation of Ahriman by Rudolph Steiner. It starts at the beginning of chapter 5, Burn, 4th of November, 1919. The phase of evolution, beginning in our own time, has a very special character. The same may, of course, be said of each epoch. But in every case, it is a matter of defining the particular characteristics of an age. The phase of evolution, which begins now and will extend into far-off times, may be characterized in a general way by saying that all humanity's experiences in the physical world during the Earth's further existence will represent a decline, a retrogression. The time when human progress was made possible through constant refinement of physical forces is already over. In the future, too, humankind will progress, but only through spiritual development, through development on a higher level than that of the processes of the physical plane. People who rely entirely on the processes of the physical plane will find in them no source of satisfaction. A long time ago, in the lecture course on the apocalypse, I spoke of the war of all against all, towards which we are now heading. This fact needs to be grasped in all its significance and gravity. Its implication must not remain in the realm of theory, but also come to expression in the actions, the whole behavior of human beings. In future, people are not going to have much joy from development on the physical plane. This fact will bring home to them that further evolution must proceed from spiritual forces. This can be understood only by surveying a lengthy period of evolution and applying what is discovered to experiences that will become more and more general in the future. The trend of forces that will manifest in the repeated recurrence of war and destruction, processes of which the recent war catastrophe is but the beginning, will become only too evident. It is childish to believe that anything connected with this war can bring about a permanent era of peace for humanity on the physical plane. That will not be so. What must come about on earth is spiritual development. Its direction and purpose will be clear to us if, after surveying a comparatively lengthy epoch preceding the mystery of Golgotha, we bear in mind something of the meaning of the mystery of Golgotha and then try to envisage the impulse from that event working into humanity's future evolution. We have studied the mystery of Golgotha from many different perspectives, and will do so again today by characterizing very briefly the civilization which preceded it, let us say as far back as the 3rd millennium BC, and then continued for a time as pagan culture in the period of Christian development itself. Within this pagan culture, the utterly different Hebraic Jewish culture took root, having Christianity as its offspring. The nature of pagan culture can best be understood if we realize that it was an outcome of knowledge, vision, and action, born of forces much wider in range than earthly forces. It was actually through Hebraic culture that the moral element was first inculcated into humanity. In paganism, the moral element did not occupy a distinct and separate place. This pagan culture was such, indeed, that people felt themselves embedded in the whole cosmos. This is something we must particularly bear in mind. Human beings living on Earth within the old pagan world felt themselves part of the whole cosmos. They felt how the forces at work in the movements of the stars extend into their own actions, or better said, into the forces taking effect in their actions. What later passed for astrology and does so still, but is but a reflection, and a very misleading one at that, of the ancient wisdom gleaned from contemplation of the stars and their courses, and then used as the basis for precepts governing human action. These ancient civilizations can be understood only if light is thrown by spiritual science upon the external aspect of human evolution some 4,000 or 5,000 years before Christ. We are apt to speak in rather matter-of-fact way of the second or first post-Atlantean epochs, but we err if we picture human existence on the Earth in the 5th, 6th, or 7th millennia BC as having been similar to our present existence. It's quite correct that people living on the Earth in those ancient times had a kind of instinctive soul life, in certain respects more akin to the soul life of animals than to that of modern human beings. But it's a very one-sided conception of human life to say that in those ancient times people were more like animals. In tenor of soul, the human being then moving about the Earth was, if it is true, more like the animal, But those human animal bodies were used by beings of soul and spirit who felt themselves embedded in supersensible worlds, above all in cosmic worlds. And provided we go back far enough, say to the 5th pre-Christian millennium, it may be said that people made use of animal bodies as instruments rather than feeling themselves contained within those bodies. To characterize these people accurately, one would have to say that when they were awake, they moved about with an instinctive life of soul like that of animals. But into this instinctive life of soul there shone something like dreams from their sleeping state, waking dreams. And in these waking dreams they perceived how they had descended to use animal bodies merely as instruments. This inner fundamental tenor of the human soul then came to expression as the religious rite, and the Mithras cult with its chief symbol of the god Mithras riding on a bull, above him the starry heavens to which he belongs, and below him the earth to which the bull belongs. This symbol was not, strictly speaking, just a symbol to those people of old. It was a vision of reality. People's whole tenor of soul made them say to themselves, "When I am outside my body at night, I belong to the forces of the cosmos, of the starry heavens. When I wake up in the morning, I make use of animal instincts in an animal body." Then human evolution passed, figuratively speaking, into a period of twilight. A certain dimness, a certain lethargy, spread over the life of humanity. Cosmic dreams receded, and then instinct gained the upper hand. The attitude of soul formerly prevailing in human beings was preserved through the mysteries, mainly through the Asiatic mysteries. But in the 4th millennium BC and until the beginning of the 3rd, humanity in general, when uninfluenced by mystery wisdom, lived an existence pervaded by a more or less dim twilight consciousness. In Asia, in the then known world, it may be said that during the 4th and at the beginning of the 3rd millennium before the mystery of Golgotha, people's life of soul was dim and instinctive. But the mysteries were there, into which, though powerful rites and ceremonies, the spiritual worlds were able to penetrate. And it was from these centers that human beings received illumination. At the beginning of the 3rd millennium, a momentous event took place. The root cause of this dim, more instinctive life may be characterized by saying that people, as beings of spirit and soul, were still unable at that time to make use of the human organs of intellect. These organs were already within them. They had taken shape in their physical constitution, but the beings of spirit and soul could not make use of them. Thus, human beings could not acquire knowledge through their own thinking and through their own powers of intellectual discernment. They were dependent upon what was imparted to them through the mysteries. And then, about the beginning of the 3rd millennium, a momentous event took place in Eastern Asia. A child of a distinguished Asian family of the time was allowed to grow up in the precincts of the mystery ceremonies. Circumstances were such that this child was actually permitted to take part in the ceremonies, undoubtedly because the priest conducting the rites in the mysteries received the inspiration to allow such a child to participate. And when the being incarnate in that child had reached the age of about 40, approximately that age, something very remarkable came to light. It became evident, and there is no doubt at all that the priests of the mysteries had foreseen the event prophetically. It became evident that this man who had been allowed to grow up in the precincts of one of the mystery centers in the east of Asia became suddenly, at the age of about 40, to grasp through the faculty of human intellect itself what had formerly entered the mysteries through revelation alone. He was, as it were, the first to make use of the organs of human intellect, but still in association with the mysteries. Translating into terms of our present language, how the priests of the mysteries spoke of this matter, we must say, in this man, Lucifer himself was incarnated, no more and no less than that. It is a significant and momentous fact that in the 3rd millennium before Christ, an incarnation of Lucifer in the flesh actually took place in the east of Asia. And from this incarnation of Lucifer in the flesh, for this being became a teacher, there proceeded what is described as the pre-Christian pagan culture which still survived in the gnosis of the earliest Christian centuries. It would be wrong to pass dismissive judgment on this Lucifer culture. For all the beauty produced by Greek civilization, even the insight that is still alive in ancient Greek philosophy and in the tragedies of Aeschylus, would have been impossible without Lucifer's incarnation. The influence of the Lucifer incarnation was still powerful in the south of Europe, in the north of Africa, and in Asia Minor during the first centuries of Christendom. And when the mystery of Golgotha had taken place on earth, it could only really be understood through Luciferic wisdom. The gnosis, which set about the task of grasping the significance of the mystery of Golgotha, was fully imbued with Luciferic wisdom. It must therefore be emphasized, firstly, that at the beginning of the 3rd millennium BC, there was a Chinese incarnation of Lucifer. At the beginning of our own era, the incarnation of Christ took place. And to begin with, the significance of the incarnation of Christ was only grasped because the power of the old Lucifer incarnation still survived. This power did not actually fade from human faculty of comprehension until the 4th century AD, and even then it had continuing after effects. To these two incarnations, the Lucifer incarnation in ancient times and the incarnation of Christ, which gives us earth in its true meaning, a third incarnation will be added in a future not so very far distant. And the events of the present time are already moving in such a way as to prepare us for this. Of the incarnation of Lucifer at the beginning of the 3rd millennium BC, we must say, through Lucifer, human beings have acquired the faculty of using organs of their intellect, of their power of intellectual discernment. It was Lucifer himself in a human body who was first to grasp through the power of intellect what formerly could be imparted to humanity only through revelation, namely the content of the mysteries. What is now in preparation and will quite definitely come to pass on earth in the not-too-distant future is an actual incarnation of Ahriman. Thus concludes Section 9:11 of the Incarnation of Ahriman by Rudolph Steiner. Next time we will continue Section 9:12, picking up again in the middle of Lecture 5. I will see you then. Olam.